right, hi everybody. We're back here at our wellness series. I'm Lucia Carinante. Introduce myself again. I'm a certified fitness trainer and nutrition coach for over 2 decades. So this is our third installment in the wellness series, and today we're going to be talking about processed foods and ultra-processed foods, and mainly how to eat healthier. So one of the things that I think is really important that maybe a lot of people don't know about is how our youth is affected by a lot of the fast foods, processed foods, quick grab and go foods. And I know that sounds like maybe judgment in a way because everybody's so busy in their life, parents are working, but I always feel like it's important to be educated on the risks and sometimes the benefits, I guess. So one of the things I did want to talk about today was how I wanted to actually start was the unprecedented rise in chronic disease that has been going on probably for 50 years, but maybe we started noticing it the last 20, maybe 30 years. I think about myself as a school-age kid, and I think about, and again, this is no judgment, so if anybody gets angry, you can email me. Everybody was, I want to just say normal weight when I was in school. So maybe when I was in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, all the way up to high school. And maybe there was a couple of kids that had some issue with weight. Now when we go in schools, it's very different. And I know a lot of people notice that. And why is that? So one of the reasons is that our biology hasn't changed, but our food has dramatically changed in the last 50 to 70 years in terms of the way it is modified, the way it is hybridized, the way even grains, even crops are changed with pesticides, which influence hormones, change the way boys and girls mature and go through puberty. So there's so many things to know, and it's scary sometimes, and it's a lot of information, but I'm going to try to keep it where it's palatable so everybody could absorb it and make better decisions, because this is just about education, not being perfect. So again, going back to how our biology has not changed, our food environment has changed. So what can we do about that? Well, one of the things is, maybe you guys were watching the Super Bowl. I wanted to bring up Mike Tyson. Everybody knows Mike Tyson. And one of the biggest things that went on during the commercials was Mike Tyson and his little blip of a commercial about obesity, about how his sister died because she was obese at a very young age, and how eating, and how also he was so obese, he got to a point where he was so depressed, and probably he did say he didn't want to live, but he changed his life. And eating whole food and real food is the answer, because chronic diseases appear earlier in life, just as he was talking about his sister. We see children developing these conditions that were once only seen in adults, but because of the change over the years, and I also think a lot of it has to do with, and again, it's no judgment, but both parents have to work these days because it's difficult, it's hard, we have to make money. But there are things we can do to teach our kids how they can sort of do some things for themselves to eat healthier. So once we introduce that, it brings them into the mix and it makes them feel that they're capable. So I think that's an important aspect of this, is to teach your kids early how to cook simple things, like, just for a quick example, they could get a muffin pan, they could fill it up with their favorite vegetables or whatever they like, and then put some eggs, pour some eggs in there and bake little muffins. They could take that to school. There's so many things that can be done, and I will be happy to answer any questions if you need help with that. But I want to really talk about the reasons why we're here and why we, want to change this. It's not about willpower. It's about something systemic has changed, that it's not anybody's fault that there's this much obesity, because it's not just what we're eating, it's how the food is grown, how it's marketed, how we see so many commercials or things that entice people, because it became a way to market the foods in a way that becomes addictive to people. So I was just talking about this with one of the people that's here, about how Doritos, for example, they test them, they have testing where scientists measure the crunch and all different things about the palatability in your mouth, and that creates an addictive connection in your brain, so you want more and more. Like, think about it, if you sat down with a bag of it, people who eat them, you can keep eating them. So what we want to do is try to avoid those things. Maybe those things are a once a month kind of treat, and in the meantime, for the rest of the time, you eat whole, real food, so we can stave off the chronic diseases. 42% of adults are obese in this country, so that's huge. Okay, so I talked about how food has changed. Around the 1950s, mostly home-cooked meals were being made. So, and I get it, society changed, the world changed, different things have happened where both mother and father are working, so we understand. But we could still do that, we just have to prepare. It might take us a little more effort, but we can do it. I believe that. Also, there were minimal ingredients back then. So if you think about your grandmother or your great-grandmother or your mother, it was basic things that we cooked with, that they cooked with. I still cook that way, so thankfully. And I think a lot of people do, but there are some people that might need some help, so we're gonna talk about that. So you can just simply think about, you want a protein, you want a healthy fat, and a healthy carbohydrate, and that's so simple to do. We tend to want a quick fix, and again, with everybody rushing in today's world and stress at work, it's easier to pick something up. But you have to remember, restaurants or takeout, there's a lot of ingredients that are very unhealthy for us. So again, that becomes part of this was about processed food. That becomes part of, now the food has some ultra-processed ingredients. So it might be a piece of chicken, but it might have been cooked in seed oil or a vegetable oil or something so unhealthy that it's going to change the way our body processes that. So, okay, back to how food has changed. We also had limited sugar exposure many years ago. There wasn't a lot of sugar available in terms of what is going on today. So a lot of the things that happened with our food is sugar was, there was a study, I think it was Harvard, and fat was demonized and sugar was what replaced fat in a lot of foods. So who funded that study, we found out later, was the sugar industry. So they took away fats that were healthy for us and they put in something that's addictive. So that, again, changes how we take in food, how our brain measures that pleasure, and that we're not satisfied, so we want more of it because we're not eating things that satisfy us. Sugar creates a spike and a crash, and then you're hungry again. So again, just to understand that is really my goal here. You can email me with questions, but try to understand that this is something that is sometimes out of our hands when it comes to foods that are processed, that we maybe buy packaged, or even in Whole Foods. If you go in Whole Foods in the what do you call it, buffet section, if you look at all the ingredients, almost, I would say 99% of them have a seed oil. So everybody thinks it's healthy, but in my opinion, it's not. Okay, here's a very important fact. 60% of calories in today's world come from ultra-processed food, and that's bad. Food is engineered for convenience, shelf life, and profit, which I explained before. All the marketing that they have done to create this need to have this food, this desire, this addiction to it. So if you start cooking for yourself, that's probably the best thing you could do if you're trying to manage weight. If you're trying to manage, even there's studies, Dr. Amen, Daniel Amen, if you read some of his books, ADHD is greatly affected in children by the types of foods, especially sugar and ultra-processed food. So it's something to think about. Okay, let's move on a little bit here. So not all processing is equal. So I wanted to explain that because there's processed food, then there's ultra-processed. So minimally processed food would be something like frozen vegetables, milk, canned vegetables, things like that. The concern, and that's okay, the concern is ultra-processed, such as packaged snacks, fast food, sodas, refined cereals, and ready-made meals like Lunchables, and or even some of the stuff that, you know, is not for kids, that's marketed toward adults. So you have to be careful, read the labels. These are industrialized formulations. They're not traditional foods. You have to think about the foods that you remember, depending on your age, growing up and cooking with ingredients, making something, taking ingredients and creating something, good, healthy ingredients. So one of the things I wanted to say, to talk about is sort of like your grocery cart comparison. It's just a little activity. So if it shows how food environment influences health, and we're not comparing calories, we're just comparing food structure. So a typical modern supermarket cart if you look around, if you go to the supermarket and you look around, most people have an ultra-processed foundation in the cart with sugary cereals, packaged snacks. You know, Costco, everybody buys the big things to give the kids. Sweetened drinks like juice boxes, terrible. It's just like sugar in a box. Frozen ready meals, and that has to be all preserved. So there's preservatives in that. Refined breads. Every loaf of bread that you pick up, there's got to be minimal 20 ingredients. I don't think there's any with less than that. So I know this, everyone's going to get a little crazy here. You can make your own bread. It's not that hard. But again, just remember, no judgment. If you're going to eat the refined breads, don't eat it every day. That's my advice. Also bars. People eat a lot of that on the run, running to the gym, running back from the gym. They're filled with a lot of nasty stuff. So you want to be really careful. I have a great recipe to make your own. If anybody's interested, you can email me. It's quick and easy. So again, as I said, these are engineered, they're for convenience, and they're overconsumed, which is the biggest problem of all. So let's just talk about what happens metabolically when we eat that. It's a rapid digestion, so your blood sugar spikes right away. There's low fiber, and you feel a reduced fullness because of that. So what happens is you start to become hungry quickly, more hungry, so you want to eat again. These foods are very palatable, so they're easy to overeat. So as I said, with the Doritos example, you could just sit in front of the TV, chips, anything like that. Nuts. Nuts are good for you, but they're very high in calories, so just remember that. But they are very palatable. What does this do to us? Forget about weight gain. Forget about the diabetes for a second. They also disrupt our gut health. So what I want to explain very briefly, because it's another topic, the gut is our second brain. So there's a connection to our brain and our gut. So how we think, how we feel, our mood. So if your gut is disrupted because of these additives, these fake foods that our bodies are not, they're not meant to take them in, you're going to have a lot of gut issues, but that leads to sometimes mood issues. I don't know if people feel or understand that. It might be a good idea to journal what you feel after eating a specific meal that you might think is bothering you in some way. Maybe it's you're tired right away, or you're impatient, you're depressed, sluggish. There's any of those things. There's more, I'm sure, but just pay attention to how you feel, just an overall thing. And again, as I said, what happens metabolically, hunger returns quickly. Despite the high calories in these foods, you get hungry really fast. So if we talk about that as, we want to change our shopping habits, a whole food-based cart, which has a foundation of nourishment, includes vegetables and fruits, eggs, meat, poultry, fish, yogurt, dairy, potatoes, rice, whole grains. But again, the whole grains, you have to be careful because if it's in a bread form, there's a lot of preservatives. Whole grains may be something like farro or quinoa, things like that, okay? Nuts also, but again, very high in calories, so you really want to minimize that. This is what humans ate historically. This is what resembles the way our cavemen ancestors ate. This is how we're supposed to eat. Again, biology hasn't changed. The way we do things has, society. So we talked about how this processes metabolically. I just want to point out a couple things that happens, the bad way. I want to point out what happens the good way when we eat healthy. Protein plus fiber improves your satiety, so you're more satisfied. You're not looking for something. This is a tip I always give my clients, and people will ask me, just nutrition questions. One girl asked me one day, she doesn't know why she can't lose 5 pounds. She just wanted to lose 5 pounds. So she gave me a little rundown of what she did during the day. And I said, okay, so when you get up, let's say you're working and you go open the refrigerator, is it a meal or are you just looking for a snack? If you can't eat a piece of chicken, if you eat meat, if you can't eat a piece of chicken or a salad, then chances are you're not hungry, you're bored. So if you're just gonna grab some quick like chips or crackers or something that's not real food, because those are processed things and junk food, then you're really not hungry. So if you open that refrigerator and there's a piece of chicken, grilled chicken, or some hard-boiled eggs, and that makes you feel satisfied, then you're hungry. But if you don't want that and you go for the cookie or the cake, then you're not hungry. So it's become another thing that you have to pay attention to is our habits. This all ties in, and our habits are what dictate how we move throughout the day. So you want to think about it. And another thing, like sometimes it's so overwhelming. Another thing I try to do with my clients is I say, give yourself a week to really, just a week. Forget about the future. Just 1 week, 7 days, and write down everything you're doing. And after a week, look at how you feel. If you could just do it for a week, so there's no overwhelming, oh my God, I'm never gonna get through this. I have to lose this weight, or I have to feel better, or I can't, exercise because I'm tired. A lot of times we're feeling these feelings because we're not eating real food. Okay, so back to the positives of filling that grocery cart with the good foods. Like I said, the protein, the fruits, the vegetables, it slows down your digestion, which helps stabilize your energy. So when your energy is stabilized, it lasts throughout the day, so you're able to do all the things you need to do. Another thing is that the nutrients in whole, real food support our immune system. So we get less illnesses, we get less colds during the flu season. One of the things which is sort of a misnomer, I would say, like everybody thinks it's flu season because it's cold, and we don't really get sick from the cold. We get sick from staying indoors and not having airflow and sitting more. So remember that you want to eat healthy so that you can support that immunity, and it supports repair as well, okay? Back to the gut, it helps to diversify our microbiome. That's what's in our gut, which helps our brain, which helps every process in the body. Our gut is involved with that, so we want healthy microbiome. It again, also appetite regulation just becomes normal, right? We're not always looking for food. Lots of times people are eating throughout the day. The whole 6 small meals, not good. What we keep doing when we do that is increasing our insulin production that the pancreas puts out. We don't want that to keep happening because if we don't use up all those calories, then we start to store fat. So 6 small meals, no good. I would just try to eat like 2 to 3 meals, make sure you get enough protein, 30 to 50 grams of protein with every meal. If you work out, you might need more. Another subject, we'll talk about that another time. Okay, so what I want to just point out is this isn't about restriction, because I don't want everybody to think, oh, this is terrible, I can't ever have my favorite food or my ice cream or my cookie. You can do that. There's ways to do that. I would say that's a once a month treat. For those of you that don't have like an issue with weight loss or any of these, factors that might be affecting you or your children, then maybe you can have a treat once a week. Another point is that you could bake things for yourself. You can make your own ice cream with real food, because now you look at the ice cream back years ago, it was just cream, eggs or sugar, cream. Now there's a whole, you can look at them, you could go to the store, you'll look at them and you'll see all the different ingredients. It's not even real ice cream, which is sad. Okay, so I want to just, before I go on to what I was going to talk about that, I want to point out, I want to go back because I went off track a little about the ultra-processed food and how the engineered factor makes them highly palatable. And I was talking a little bit about the crunching and this. It's also soft textures make them really easy to eat really quickly. So think about that sometimes when you're eating something like that, how fast you just pop things in your mouth. They digest rapidly and they don't trigger fullness, which is a problem because then the signal doesn't get there and you keep thinking you're hungry. You're sort of bypassing your natural appetite regulation. So another bad thing about processed foods. So it's not so much also, I want to tell you about calories. That's not the whole story. The foods increase your hunger hormones. And so when your hunger hormones go, when that increases, then you're going to just naturally eat more. Again, where, it encourages this passive overeating. You're not really paying attention. You're not present in that moment. You're not looking at that food and enjoying every bite of it. If you say you want to have one treat, one cookie, one whatever it is you like, I don't know. Maybe break it in half, maybe eat half of it. Think about it while you're eating it rather than just popping them in your mouth. That's another thing. It's called mindless eating. I find that I've done it too. It's not like I, don't do any of this. We all do. Stress too. Some people have stress in their life and they can't eat. Other people have stress in their life and they eat more because it creates dopamine. So we want to be, feel better. So that's the immediate thing that happens. So if you eat real food, you'll have less of a chance of having these hormones increase and you'll be satisfied. You won't be looking, an hour later for more food. Research also shows that people may consume hundreds more calories per day. So I think I talked about this last time. We eat so little protein, but the average amount of carbohydrates from processed food is about 300 grams, and that's bad. That's not good. That's negative. We don't want that. So when eating the ultra-processed diet, people are eating these ultra-processed diet, when they're doing that, they don't even realize that. So again, this is encouraging that passive overeating, which we don't even realize. If you sat down and you had a little food diary or plugged it into an app or something, you'll notice that. And you might be able to just take out a couple of things here and there and reduce maybe 500, 700 calories without a problem. You'd be surprised. So think about that. I do have, if anyone is interested, a way that because I thought it might come up, to create a calorie deficit. There's a formula. So I have it here. I'm going to send it to Alana. She's going to email it. And then you guys can figure it out yourself. And then you could just see how simple it is if you're trying to lose weight. I'm not just talking about weight loss. I'm talking about health. But I see obesity as a major issue, so I did feel like I needed to touch upon that. Okay, the blood sugar disruption, that is really important. I might have talked about that a little bit with the muscle series we did, the muscle class we did. But refined carbohydrates, refined meaning these processed foods, create rapid glucose spikes. And what does that mean? That means our sugar, our blood sugar goes up major quick, and it leads to the insulin surges and then the crashes and the renewed cravings. As I said, you will feel satisfied in the moment, and then you will be hungry shortly thereafter, and then your cravings will come back. So if any of you are struggling with cravings and you don't know why, this could be one of the reasons. There might be other reasons, but this could be one of them. So over time, this is going to contribute to something called insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. And it is not hard to reverse that. It's not hard at all. You just have to be mindful of what you eat. Again, I'm not going to say you can never have sugar or you can never have a refined carbohydrate. I'm just going to say be aware of how much of it you're eating, because you don't want to get type 2 diabetes. You just don't. And insulin resistance prevents you from losing weight, prevents you from feeling your best also. You feel very sluggish, you feel very tired. You might even be that type of person who is dozing off all the time. I've seen that. So be mindful. Oh, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about hidden ingredients in foods that we might not think are bad. So the ultra-processed foods often contain things called emulsifiers and stabilizers. Like you'll see guar gum, starches, things like that, because they make the food a certain texture. And also, there's preservatives and artificial flavors which make the food last longer, taste better. So one of the things I'm sure some of you have seen on the news, like the dyes, like the food coloring that is in I'm sorry, not the food coloring, the food dyes that are in some of our foods. So in Europe, those dyes are they're not allowed to be put into the food. They're banned. So we're trying to do that now. Hopefully that's gonna stick. And they use to make certain things look a certain color. They use vegetable, like beets and carrots, rather than this fake stuff that has a lot of there's a lot of negativity surrounding them. I won't talk about that because I don't know enough about it, but they do say that some of them are, cause, bad diseases. I don't even want to say it because I don't like to say it. So this is, again, the emerging research links this to gut disruption and inflammation. Inflammation, your joints might hurt, you might have a headache, you might feel bloated. These are, again, I'm just pointing out things that you might notice in your own body, and you want to change things. So back to the gut microbiome, whole foods feed the beneficial bacteria. That's called your microbiome. The ultra-processed foods reduce the microbial diversity, as I said. So, again, the gut influences your immunity, metabolism, and mood, and brain health, just to recap that. Okay, why don't we feel full lots of times? So, when you eat an ultra-processed diet, you have dense calories but poor nutrition. When you eat whole foods, you have fiber, water, and structure in the food. This is alive. Ultra-processed foods are dead. They're not alive. It's junk. So we can actually consume large amounts before fullness registers because it's not full of the fiber and the water and the actual structure. So remember, you're not going to eat as much whole foods as you are ultra-processed foods. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to how satisfied you feel, and if your body starts to feel better, if maybe joint pain goes away, maybe bloating goes away, maybe dozing off, maybe loss of concentration, brain fog goes away. There's so many great benefits that can come. Okay, so biology actually expects effort from us. So historically, we chewed more than we do now, digested and absorbed food slowly. Some people say chew like 25 times because the chewing helps break down the food, helps your body digest it better. When you're eating modern foods, they deliver a lot of pre-digested calories with such little effort. And a lot of times we're not sitting enjoying, we're sort of gobbling down things. I'm not, it's hard to like talk about this without making it seem like, everybody's doing this. It's not everybody, but there's an epidemic. So I'm just pointing it out on a bigger scale. But doing that confuses our metabolic regulation. So we're not digesting the way we should. It's like a rush to eat. People are rushing. People are, nobody has time. So we have to make time. This is an important thing. As much as I might get a fight with people, some of my clients like, I can't, I do this, I the kids, this, that. Well, then, you know what? It's hard now. I understand, but it'll be much harder later when you're sick. So let's do the hard stuff now when you're able to do it so that you stay healthy. Because yeah, it might be hard to prepare maybe meal prep or meal plan for the family or whatever, but then at least you have health around you. And then you don't have to worry that you're not going to be able to maybe play with your grandchildren. So this is serious. The inflammation. So I just talked about that, the bloating and the joint pain. A lot of that is all inflammation, and that comes with ultra-processed foods are all associated with heart disease, fatty liver, arthritis, cognitive decline. Dementia is very much associated with high sugar intake. So, and again, you might be thinking, oh, I don't eat sugary things, but there's sugar in a lot of processed foods hidden. So you might see it in different wording, so you might not be familiar with it. I think that if you bought the foods in the perimeter of the supermarket, we were going to do something like that. I don't know if we're going to do it, go to the supermarket and actually walk around. But the aisles are full of processed food. The perimeter is full of whole foods. If you notice, you have to go through the vegetable department to get all the way around to where the yogurts and the milk is, so that you go through all the lanes, all the aisles, because they want you to buy all that. And the cereal is eye level to children, all the candies, it's all marketing. So I want you to understand this is contributing to a lot of people with heart disease, liver disease, arthritis. These diseases were not as prevalent as they are today if you go back 50, 60, 70 years. They just were not. And it is our food supply, unfortunately. So we have a lot of good information to help you change. So again, my next point was I added into that is the labels like low fat or whole grain or high protein. That does not mean a product is healthy. That's a marketing tool versus what the reality is. Many of these still remain very highly ultra-processed despite the messaging. The messaging is something we can't control, unfortunately. Maybe someday there'll be some laws for that, I don't know. But in the meantime, you're smart. Everybody here is smart. You look at the ingredients and you make a decision. So when you pick up an apple, there's no label that tells you what's in the apple. It's just an apple. But when you pick up a loaf of bread or you pick up a low-fat yogurt, most of the time what you're going to see are a lot of ingredients that you don't really want. Oh, hi, Tom. Thanks for joining. I just saw you pop up. So, okay, so let's see. So I pointed this out before, like I didn't want to sound judgmental because this isn't a personal failure. Unfortunately, our environment's changing faster than the human biology. Our biology is the same. Food companies optimize these processed foods for shelf life and repeat purchase, also because the repeat purchase, the marketing, the palatability. So this is all for money. This is all for profit. So it does not add up to long-term health, good health. It could add up to long-term bad health, of course. So just take that, take that in. This isn't a personal thing. This is just the way things have changed, unfortunately. And there's a lot of it is out of our control, but a lot of it is in our control, I believe. So you have to do a lot of the work for yourself, a lot of things that you might not think about, just simple things, like I said, going to a restaurant or takeout. You're better off cooking. So I said before that like type 2 diabetes is one of the big things that is happening now in even young people, which it was really wasn't there for so long. But it's reversible because the body responds really quickly to real food and real ingredients. Improvements in your blood sugar, improvements in your hunger regulation, they improve really quickly. That's why I said take a week and kind of like evaluate yourself. You owe that to yourself, right? It's you saying, I love myself and I want to know exactly what's happening, so I'm going to keep track of it. What can we compare it to? Like, what do? We keep track of, I don't know, maybe going out with friends, socializing. So keep track of what you're going to put in your body, what food is going to go into your body that's going to affect all your cells. And then see how those improvements actually make you feel better if you make those changes. Inflammation can be reduced within weeks. So I would encourage you to really keep track. So what counts as real food? I said a few things, so I'll say some more. Anything that comes from a plant or an animal, that's real, right? Some people don't eat meat, but that's okay. There's plenty of plants, fruits, vegetables. The fewer ingredients, the better. So if you do find something packaged, like there's I might have said it last week, the RX bars that I like. There's figs, there's cashews, almonds, eggs, and cocoa. So that's a bar that I encourage. It has a high carbohydrate because of the figs or the dates, one of them, because it's a dried fruit, so it's higher concentrated in sugar. But at least there's fiber in it, right? Sugar is still sugar. Sugar from M&Ms, sugar from an apple. It's the same molecule, but the apple has fiber, so it slows down the sugar in your bloodstream. Just understand that. What counts as real food again? Something that would be recognizable 100 years ago. If that's true, then it's likely a whole food. All these things, that's what counts as real food. So remember that. So we don't want people to feel restriction because it messes sometimes with, happiness, I guess. Like, oh, I'm not allowed to eat that now. Now but let's look at it a different way. Let's sort of reframe it. We want to replace the things that are not good rather than call it restriction. So let's talk about swapping rather than eliminating. So for those of you who are eating sugary cereals, snack bars, soda, frozen meals, anything like that, let's take the cereal. We can eat eggs. We can eat oatmeal. We can eat fruits. We can eat yogurt. For snack bars, we can have a few nuts and a piece of fruit, or the bar I told you about. Soda, I just say it's out of the question, in my opinion. If you want to have a soda, have it once a month if it's your thing, but that can't be in your life. It's just drinking it's just drinking a glass of sugar. So you have an enormous amount of spike in your blood sugar at that point. It's so bad for you. Just get soda out. I don't think there's a replacement except, water. And frozen meals, you have to remember there's a lot of preservatives. So simple protein and vegetables, just simple. So again, let's talk about starting where we are. We don't need to be perfect. We don't need to stress ourselves out like, okay, I really, want to have, I'm out to dinner tonight, I want to have a piece of cake, I want to have a dessert. Split it with your partner, split it with your friend, have a couple bites. After a few weeks, you'll notice you don't want the whole thing anymore. So it's not about being perfect. You don't have to be, I'm one of those people, you can't ever do anything that is a little bit off the straight and narrow. Just start where you are, because the stress might make it worse. Try to cook more often. Let's say you cook twice a week. Maybe add it to 3, add another day. See if you could cook dinner 3 nights a week. Create a family environment. I remember when I was young, like we always waited for my dad to get home. I remember when my kids were young, I stopped working for a little while when my kids were really little. We waited for my husband. Even though the kids might have been hungry, we all sat together. So cooking as a family and creating that environment, it gives you something to look forward to, and it's an enjoyable moment with that delicious food you cooked, rather than the quick grab, the kids watching TV, everybody running in different directions. Create some kind of tradition that helps you kind of feel stable. So you're just starting something new if you're not doing this already. As I said before, prioritize your protein, prioritize your vegetables, eat fewer packaged foods. We talked about shopping the perimeter of a supermarket. So what I wanted to say about all of this that's really important, because I don't want to focus on everybody and their weight, because that's, it's personal, right? It's about health span. And I said, one of the things I said before, people say to me all the time, oh, it's so hard, I don't have time. I just drank whatever, a yogurt thing for breakfast, and I didn't eat for 6 hours, and then they go home and they eat whatever they, can find, and then they gain weight. Even if you're not eating a lot, you can still gain weight by what you're eating, because the difference in the calories. So it's about your health span. So when you reduce these ultra-processed foods and you start to do the things that make sense, you support energy and longevity and metabolic health, which leads to mental clarity, which leads to happiness, which leads to exercising more, because you have that energy. So you're really not just talking about, I want to lose 10 pounds, you're talking about just being healthy overall. Food is information for your cells. People don't understand that. Food, everything you put in, your cells read. It's like a computer in your body, and your cells are saying, okay, I have this, I can use that for this part of my body. My liver needs that, my heart needs that, my blood needs that. So pay attention to that when you eat. And in the back of your mind, just remember, what is going in my body is going to affect my cells. So when it affects your cells, it affects your overall being. I think about this a lot with kids, and especially kids that have behavioral issues, and the parents don't realize how much the food has affected them. This is a really important thing. They're talking more and more about this now, like I said, with the changing of some of the stuff that's going on in our overall food, industry. So let's hope that it continues. So one of the things I wanted to do is ask you guys some questions. So first, do you have any questions? Let's start there. Do you guys have any questions? No? Negative? I'm gonna take that as no. So what I would say for you guys to do is think about what changes, if you want change. I'm assuming you're here for a reason. So if you want change, what feels realistic to you? Write that down. What challenges do you face daily? Maybe there's something that I could help you with, or you can help yourself. And part of this is for our community. I wish there were more people, but hopefully they watch it. But how can we support each other as a community? This is one of the things that we're doing to help support the community. I, as a member of the community, thought this would be a great idea for everybody to learn in a really nice, calm environment. So you don't have any questions. I hope I gave some good information. I do have some handouts that I'm going to have Alana send over to you guys that maybe I sent something last time for the muscle talk we had. But I would love it if if anything comes up during the week and you want to reach out to me, I'd love to hear from you because that's why I'm here. So just remember, this isn't about restriction. It's just about changing the default foods that we have and the habits that we have that maybe aren't aligning with the way we want to live and the feelings that we want to have and the energy that we want and positivity that we want to put forth out into the world, into our family, because the food that we eat affects our body, affects our biology, affects our lifestyle. So that's a fact, that's science. So we all want to feel good. All right, guys? Very quiet over there. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off if you don't have any questions, but I thank you so much for joining. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.